It's been a while since I last made an actual video. What have I been doing with all that free time? Well, I've been on a journey of self-discovery and character development by starting my very own lawn mowing company.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing.
In 2012, the Amazing Spider-Man movie came out with Andrew Garfield taking over as Spider-Man from Tobey Maguire. Back in those days, you would often get a movie tie-in game. The best one being the X-Men Origins Wolverine game that I wish I could still play. Anyway, I've never played the first Amazing Spider-Man game, but I remember watching Let's Plays of the game back in the day, and it was very different to what happened in the movie. There were giant robots and mutant creatures in the game, but the movie only had that lizard dude with a 12-inch cock. I was recently gifted a copy of the second Amazing Spider-Man game, and by recently I mean September, because that's when I got the platinum for the game. That's the only reason I would have for wanting to play this game, because the platinum trophy is pretty easy. My biggest problem with the game is the hero/menace system. I know everyone already talks about how much they hate this system when talking about this game, but holy shit. I thought they were exaggerating how bad it was. I also played this game on the hardest difficulty, so maybe that had something to do with it being really bad. You can start with a full hero meter, and by the time you get to your destination to start your next story mission, it's already halfway through the menace meter. Halfway through my time playing this game, I just decided to give up on trying to fill up the hero meter, just like how that girl who was never treated right gives up on you. Trying to fill that hero meter is like pissing on a fire to put it out. Could you put that fire out? With enough piss, maybe you could, but it's not worth it. That time and effort would be better spent jacking off a horse. But whatever you do, don't do what that guy did back in Washington on July 2nd, 2005. You can fill the hero meter by saving civilians from burning buildings, bomb disposal, fighting criminals, and taking injured civilians to the hospital where they can enter lifelong medical debt that they will never pay back. Maybe Jameson has a good point. Spider-Man is a menace for putting people in medical debt. However, if you ignore just one of these activities, that hero meter will drain and fill up the menace meter twice as fast as it will take to fill the hero meter. Both sides of the meter have 3 levels, and you basically don't get anything for having a full level 3 hero meter. But for each level of the menace meter, the city goes further into martial law, where a task force tries to hunt down Spider-Man. Does this happen in the movie? No, nothing close to this happens in the movie. Some of the boss fights were interesting. When you fight Craven in Central Park, you have to use your spidey sense to find him in the trees and what was I doing again? So yeah, you find Craven using your spidey sense and bring him back down to the ground to beat him up a little bit before he runs and hides in the trees again a bunch of times. Seems like Craven learned a thing or two back in Vietnam about hiding in the trees. He also has this ability to make Spider-Man schizophrenic by having multiple Cravens appear in the boss fight. Black Cat as always is a fine busty babe, and you even get a little rough with her in a museum. She moves quick and you have to find her quick, or else she will do some damage to you before you throw her into a mammoth skeleton. The fight with Kingpin was the one I had the most trouble with, because I spent around 30 minutes trying to beat the big fella. His fight is in 3 parts. The first part is fighting him solo, and then for the second and third parts, he has his task force helping him. One of the final boss fights is with Electro, and in my opinion this fight just felt boring to me. But then you get a better fight right after with Harry Osborn as the Jolly Green domestic terrorist after he takes Richard Parker's Spider Venom formula. One of the most important things in Spider-Man games are the suits. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has a total of 13 suits. 3 of those suits are from the movies and the remaining 10 are from the comics. In my opinion, the best suits in this game are the TASM 1 suit, the Scarlet Spider suit, the Miles Morales suit, and the 2099 suit. It's not a big selection of suits, but it's enough to give you some options for which Spider-Man you want to play as. The combat and traversal are alright. It's a very simple combat system that just works. The traversal is also alright. Swinging and travelling through the city felt very clunky to me at first, but even by the end of it there was still a little clunk to it. I will say that there is kind of a cool feature with Spidey Sense where you can sometimes perform some almost cinematic traversal, but that's about all I have to say about the traversal. There are a few side activities which can add a few extra hours of playtime. There are underground bunkers where you have to use stealth to unlock new suits for Spider-Man. There are comic pages scattered all around the city which you can collect, but you don't need all 300 comic pages to get the trophy, so that's pretty good for any platinum trophy hunters. There are also races that you can do which are all pretty easy. None of the actors from the movies voiced their characters in this game, and I don't blame them. But let's be honest, it's because Activision didn't want to drop any more stacks than necessary to make a Spider-Man game that loosely follows the events of the movie. Those stacks are only for Call of Duty. Speaking of Activision, do they publish anything other than Call of Duty anymore? I can only think of Crash Bandicoot 4 that came out a few years ago, but that's it. From the start of the game, you are introduced to a serial killer who kills criminals and leaves the initials CK. He is publicly known as the Carnage Killer, which immediately kills off any hype or speculation you might have, because it's obvious who it is. Oscorp gets attacked by some Russians for some reason. This is clearly an act of terrorism where the government should step in, but as Reagan once said,
9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Harry inherits Oscorp after his father dies and teams up with Kingpin, who has his own agenda to take down Spider-Man with the task force created to stop crime. Kraven gets involved somehow as a security consultant for Kingpin. The events of the movie still loosely take place in the game. Also, Chameleon is teased at the end for a third game that never happens, because you know why. My final rating for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is going to be a 4 out of 10. The game is just very mediocre with just a few small redeeming qualities. The combat and traversal is just alright. The story is mainly bad because it takes the story from the movie and somehow tries to add Kingpin, Kraven and Carnage to it for some reason. The story could have actually been much better, and if it was, I reckon I would be able to justify a 5 or 6 out of 10 rating. They could have had a much better story if they went with a Sinister Six story, since they already had Electro, Green Goblin and even Rhino to build a Sinister Six story for the game. I'm fully aware that Rhino was in the first game, but they could just easily have some Russian dude in a robotic Rhino suit. The first act of the game could have been completely related to the movie by having Electro, Green Goblin and Rhino as the villains. The second act can have Dr. Octopus and Vulture be the main focus, and then finally they can have Kraven being the final boss in the third act. That story and structure would have worked very well in my opinion, and much better compared to what we actually got. Anyway, I need to go cut someone's grass now. Thanks for watching.